Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 9, Episode 12 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on July 6, 2026. And happy 4th of July. It's a couple days after, but hopefully everyone had a great 4th of July weekend in the United States. And for those who don't celebrate 4th of July, I hope that you just had a great weekend anyways. But today we're going to do something that's a little bit more summary. We're going to talk about Legion Friends Beer. It's a Charlotte, North Carolina brewery, Legion Brewery, and they call it Friends Beer. I don't know why. Friends and Beer. Man, I skipped the and. But this is the Supernova Passionfruit Orange Guava Sour Ale. They don't really have any copy on it except for this is a Berliner Weisse style featuring a harmony of passionfruit, orange, and guava, and that is it. It is a 4.7% ABV ale, and it looks beautiful in the glass. You have had a sip. What do you think?
I'll admit, I'm not a huge fan. I think the flavor profile here, if you know it's in it and you're familiar with those fruits, you can pull them out. I'd say if you're a person who doesn't get a lot of guava, which I do, I can buy them from Costco. I just buy the guavas and eat them. I love them. Or like really like getting actual passion fruit and eating it. Because sometimes passion fruit flavored things and passion fruit themselves are kind of different. Most people don't expect it to be as acidic as it is. It, to the average tongue, I think comes off that this is kind of like a grapefruit sour. It's got that kind of the bitterness to it. There's a citrusy component, but it's very kind of mellow compared to what you expect of an orange. It just lacks any of that sweetness. And it puts me in a flavor profile of like, I could drink it. I'll finish what I've got. But when there's all these other sours available that I think do kind of hit that same thing that I feel like with the cider, that if you're going to have a fruit sour, it should taste like kind of the fruits that it's made out of. This misses the mark a little bit for me.
I'm of two minds about this, because you know I love a good complex.
Yeah, and it is. You can, if you like truly know what a guava tastes like, you can pull it out. If you really know what passion fruit tastes like, you can pull it out. It's just, if it had 3 times as much orange, I think it would be better balanced than what it is right now.
But does it have orange in it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah.
We've got the kind of more acidic, muted stuff of the guava and the passion fruit coming through, but we have the more traditional citrus coming through with the orange, which is what kind of gives that grapefruit vibe. But there's not enough of it. That's why it is kind of the grapefruit. If this had, or like if it was like, you could even, if you really wanted to like be dialing into that little bit of bitterness, this could be blood orange. And really dial into the blood orange, and that'd give it, I think, a little bit more of a well-rounded feel to it.
So just talking about the look and the head and everything like that, it's a beautifully crafted beer.
Yeah.
It looks great in the glass. It keeps a nice foam for a little bit. It doesn't stay for too long, because a beer like this, I generally wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
I don't know about the flavors yet. I'm gonna have to drink it warm to
I
get
am
the
interested
final.
in warm, because when it's cold, the sweetness won't express very well. So this one maybe does have a chance that when it's warm to really be a lot brighter and to hold together a little bit more. But right now, I think it's just too bitter for what it's advertising.
I like the bitterness. I like the very citrusy, bitter flavor that's there. All these things are very citrusy fruits. Anyways, I can taste the different fruits in it. Except for the orange. I get citrus. I don't really get particularly orange.
Yeah, that's my big problem. Because I think orange would be great. If it had more orange, I think, at this level, cold, you might when it's warm. If it had more orange, it'd be a lot better balanced.
When I first tasted it, all I tasted was bitterness and grapefruit. And then as my tongue got used to it and coated with the beer and I let it set in my mouth, it developed more and more. And I drank pretty much my glass like in the first few sips, because I was trying to like pull out the flavors. So I think from that perspective, this is a good beer. I just don't think it's for most people.
Yeah.
I think it's a good beer. I think it's a well-crafted beer. I just think most people are not they're not looking for something like that. If you're looking for complex like wine-like notes that you would pull
Mm-hmm.
out of mead or wine or something like that, that's what this is. I'm generally not looking for that in a sour. I just kind of want something that's kind of fruity and something like that. I don't know how I like this
Mm-hmm.
yet. I'm going to see what it's like when it's warmer, but that's kind of where my take is
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you.
Let's talk about the jobpocalypse, which we kind of hinted in the last
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
So, my spouse, she's been affected by the jobpocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you know what? I don't even care. I'm going to name the American Red Cross. I normally am all for them. When I had an apartment building that burned down,
Mm-hmm.
their volunteers showed up. They were great. They helped us deal with and get some resources to be able to get back on our feet because most of us lost everything when that happened. So, like from that standpoint, I am very much a fan of the American Red Cross and what they do and how they help because
Mm-hmm.
they don't like go and necessarily give food and stuff like that, or sometimes they'll give a little bit of money, but really what they do is they like help you get resources for like clothes or to make sure that you have the resources that you need for like immediate medical care or something like
Yeah.
that, right? And it's small amounts, but it's that little thing that you need to get you over the hump to get a better, like more local resource to help you, like a food pantry or a clothes closet or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where um, the arm that my wife worked for, they just kind of laid her off um, because they were doing reductions because of their use of AI,
Yeah.
essentially. But also, they weren't as profitable as they thought they were going to be, and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
She got sacrificed. And the the problem that I have is not so much that they laid her off because that happens. Everybody gets laid off a little bit.
Yeah.
That's just kind of part of it. It's not necessarily always a performance issue or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. The problem that I have with that is these companies don't think about the impact it's going to have on the families, on the people, and they treat it like you're going to get a job in 2 weeks. And that's
Yeah.
not the environment that we live in when you've created a problem where you're just laying people off with little to no resources. I think they gave her like 2 weeks of severance
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of um, a little bit of assistance with getting, uh, you know, like job placement and resume
Mm-hmm.
buffing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And basically, what the people from the job placement thing told her and the people that were helping her to update her resume was, you've got a strong resume. You just got to get out there and network. We really
Mm-hmm.
can't improve on it, but it's a hard market, and you're probably not going to get a job anytime soon.
Yeah.
And so get kicked out the door with the intention of or thought of, hey, you'd do well, like you're great, you'll be able to get a job, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. Also, I mean, I don't know that it was the American Red Cross so much as her director. So maybe some of my
Yeah.
hate on them is more like hate on her director. That lady is a piece of crap.
Yeah.
But so maybe that was it.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of that story is this is what happens when you just treat it like it was in the 90s. In the 90s, in the early 2000s, you lay someone off, they'll have a job in like 3 months or two
Yeah.
months or something like that. They're not burning through their savings
Yeah.
to be able to get a job. If they're employable, they'll get a job.
Mm-hmm.
If they're a good employee, if they're a loyal employee, if they're able to interview well, they'll get a job. You can't even get interviews now.
Yeah.
I think that she's gotten 3 interviews in the last 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
What? That's
Exactly.
crazy.
It's
You know?
Yeah. We've laid off so many people that jobs are so incredibly competitive, and there's not as many of them because people are trying to move open positions towards AI. I think AI has become almost like a little bit of a siren's call for bad businesses.
Yeah.
And I think if you go back 20 years and we say, all right, here's a traditional, everybody's employed. Maybe we've got like a contract group, but like a huge parts of our business are still local to where we are, right? If you hit into this sort of situation where we're saying, okay, hey, we're not as profitable as we expect it to be, you have to sit down and you have to make eventually some really hard decisions. Like in the beginning, you do something like, maybe I'll cut like our spending budget a little bit. Or, okay, maybe we'll put a freeze on hiring. We won't hire new people because we're struggling with the people we have. But it's a death spiral for a company often to be like, okay, we're not profitable, so we need to start laying off workers to meet our bottom line. But it's those same workers that do the work that generates our revenue, right? There is that point where you eventually look at your company and say, okay, what I have to do is fix these process issues.
Right.
I have to fix this market issue. I have to fix whatever this thing is, because laying off a certain percentage of my workforce isn't really an option, because then I don't have enough people to actually run the business at the level it needs to run. But with AI, it kind of becomes this little stopgap. But with like hey, now wait a minute. What if I could take those 10% and I could replace them with AI, and the AI is cheaper and it can do the work, quote unquote, just as well. So I don't have to go and fix that process issue yet. I could lay these people off and improve my bottom line while not affecting anything in my business. And we all know that's not really the case. But exactly to what you said, if people are thinking about the long-term future, the problem for me, I think, when you think about how kind of foolish, and that's why I kind of call it the siren's call, it just worsens that death spiral. It's the first step. You can't come back from it. You've laid off that 10% if the AI doesn't work out. Or even if it does, let's say, okay, yeah, that actually is cheaper, but it hasn't fixed my problem because I've still got my market issue, or I've still got my process issue, whatever like that. You still have to go back and fix those things, but now you don't have the people.
Yep.
So
and the AI can't really reason itself into
that's
fixing
a hard
something
pivot.
like that.
That's a go back and retrain in a lot of situations, And oftentimes when you're doing these sort of restructurings, sometimes you have to go and take out that loan and hire in some people to help you pivot. Like you're going to put in a new inventory management system, or you're going to do a new ordering system, or whatever it is you need. Oftentimes in those process areas, you have to invest in the company, go take on some debt to make the company more efficient so it can be profitable. Well, okay, now we got to retrain the AI. We still got to bring in all those other people, and let's hope the AI can do the new process well. Let's hope it's got whatever integrations it needs.
Right.
Because now you got to say, all right, well, not only do I need new ordering system, new whatever, my AI has to be able to interact with it. So I better hope that new system I want to put in has appropriate APIs and everything like that. So, now your option of solution is more limited, because now it has to be compatible with whatever AI systems you've got.
And you're going to have to either hire a company or hire more people to manage that AI.
Oh yeah, Now the AI thing has to
it.
change. Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm getting, is I think it becomes this really attractive option for companies not thinking about the future, because it gives them one more thing to do before they have to bite the bullet and make more sweeping changes to their business model. But I do think it ultimately puts you in a worse position. Like you kick the can down the road a little bit further, but like it's a bad kick. It's not like, okay, well, I'm another 10 feet down the road. You hit that can, you're like, now I'm in the mud, right? Like it's real unfortunate, because we do have a lot of qualified people out on the market that could do this work, that I do think ultimately, at some level, maybe not all of them, but at some level, a lot of them are going to have to come back and start doing that work as people find issues and gaps in the AI, or even as we talked about a couple episodes ago, eventually tokens are going to get more expensive. And
they already are getting more expensive.
Yeah, for some solutions, exactly. They're already getting more expensive. And so what was cheaper than having people today might not be cheaper than having people 2 years from now.
This is the same problem that we have with the cloud, right?
Exactly.
The cloud, not having on-prem solutions and no IT department was very attractive, and having cloud solutions was cheaper to begin with per seat. But now, as you're
now you have to hire
raising
your
the
cloud
costs,
specialists and things like that.
because you can't just leave that unattended. You need someone that knows how to manage it, and so either you're outsourcing that to someone who does know how to manage it, and you can audit them, but then you have to have an audit person.
Yeah.
So like there just kind of becomes this trail of you're just replacing this person over here that was actually doing the work that made you money to this group of people over here who are just sucking money out of your company.
It's exactly like it introduced a new market and people come in, and I just don't foresee the way companies are using AI today. It doesn't create that same space.
I also think there's another topic here that when we're talking about AI is one big monster in the room. We also have bad habits that AI is amplifying.
Yeah.
So companies for years have been laying off like their bottom performers or whatever because it makes them look better. It's a decision where they wouldn't be able to hire new talent. It's blah, 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 blah. Like there's all these excuses that they do for it. And sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah.
But when you mandate it to like a yearly or bi-yearly or twice yearly sort of thing, because it makes your stock prices look better, that's a problem, because that becomes a habit. And even if you're a company that doesn't do layoffs very often, when you do get around to doing layoffs because of whatever, if your decision-making process is based off of, I need to reduce my workforce because I overhired, number one, bad habit, bad problem, bad issue. Secondly, if it's I need to reduce my workforce because I've got a bunch of people in my workforce that aren't retiring, that's also a problem. Not saying you need to force people to retire. It's very important to have elder people, and I'm not talking about elderly people. I'm talking about like wiser,
people older,
senior people that are there to be able to guide younger people. But also, if you've got someone who's been there in the company for 50 years and they're not, they're like looking, they're just hanging out for their retirement. I mean, that's cool. That's great. Don't get rid of them. But also, that maybe like needs to like refocus your idea of like why you're hiring new people, who's the person that you're getting rid of, why you're getting rid of them, and all sorts of stuff like that.
That's very valid, and that's not something that gets brought up a lot when you start talking about like staffing things.
Yeah.
Is that you do have a problem if suddenly the person you hired when was junior, maybe now they have 5-6 years experience, you can't move them into a higher level role because there's no high level role available. Because one step up, that person who should have 5 years experience has 10 years experience, and the person who had 10 has 20. There is definitely the thing of having too senior a workforce, because it does stop new talent from being able to flow in and stay. What happens is that guy who's got 10 years of experience and isn't getting promoted just goes to another company.
Right.
Like they don't have a long-term career path in your company, which, I think it is kind of a bit of a big problem. I do think a lot of the culture, especially in higher performing tech companies, of the like, oh yeah, get a new job every 2 years. A lot of that is driven from companies not being able to like quickly and elegantly handle the maturity of their workforce.
Right.
Right. You could, I think the company we're in is actually pretty good about this. When it comes time that someone's shown that they're ready for a new grade, the promotions, at least in our department, come pretty easy. You're not...
Until you get to a certain point.
Yeah, but there's always that kind of like top of the pyramid. But if you start at like early in career, you can get to senior in career relatively quickly on the same scale that you would if you were job hopping.
Right.
But in a lot of companies that have a much more mature workforce, You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, hey, you're going to be in this role for 5 years, and it's like, yeah, but I'm going to cap out on what I can learn in 2. So if you can't pivot me to a new role, I need to pivot somewhere else because I
Right.
need to keep growing. So that is a good point. You do see that sometimes in a lot of tech companies if they're like, hey, we're going to buy out some of the more senior people because we need to open up those positions so that the people that are trying to continue to advance their career can.
And not only tech companies, but what I'm learning, and I don't know as much about other companies or I know a lot about government agencies.
Yeah.
I know about government agencies and tech companies. Those are like my two, realms of knowledge. I don't know as much about like other companies that are outside of those spheres so much. Yeah. However, as I'm learning more about them and their practices, they have the same bad practices. And I think that's just more of like a global problem. There are some places that handle it a little bit better. And I also think that in some industries, people don't care as much about job growth and promotion as long as you give them security.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, the job apocalypse is real. I mean, we're getting rid of, like, we're talking about creating jobs, but we're creating jobs for robots and AI. We're not creating jobs for humans, which is a huge problem globally. There are countries that are doing better at regulating that and forcing those sorts of things, like a lot of the European countries and some of the Asian countries have like really much stricter rules on us, on the tech bros and everything, kind of like getting rid of people because they're able to influence companies worldwide. But it's not as helpful as it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, everything was wrangled. And I think that what we're doing right now, where all these people are getting laid off, it isn't as much of a response to AI per se. It's AI is a catalyst for doing this.
Yeah.
It's a response to overhiring, which was a bad practice, from scooping up every bit of talent that people could during the pandemic era.
Yes, definitely. I talk with people in tech about that all the time, that money was so cheap over COVID in the very beginning of it, and there was such a need to grow as everyone started working remotely that companies were really just hiring people for the sake of hiring people.
Yeah.
Because it became this like, well, if I don't employ you, my competitor will employ you. So it's like business security or whatever to have you. And now that the layoffs are happening, like those people are already gone.
Yeah.
Like the first couple rounds of layoffs, like starting in like 2023, 2024, got those folks.
Yep.
And now we're just kind of in this continue to grip. And there's talk of the federal interest rate going back up again, which is just going to make that problem worse.
It is going to absolutely make that problem worse.
So yeah,
it feels very intentional. It may be coincidental, but it feels very intentional. Like I'm a patterns person, and I watch patterns, and sometimes it's more intuition than it is. Well, really, it's my brain being ahead of whatever it's telling me, and I'm seeing a pattern that I don't like fully understand how to articulate. The thing that I'm seeing right now, it seems like we have two things that are pushing that pressure towards making that happen. One, we have in the United States and in some other countries, we have governments that are run by people that are more interested in, without making this political, gaining wealth.
Yeah.
But not gaining wealth for everyone. Gaining wealth just in the general, when it comes to the economic growth of certain things.
Yeah.
So AI,
kind of national wealth versus individual wealth.
Yeah. Well, not just national wealth. I think it's less national wealth. I think it's more like economic wealth.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. The same thing is you're worried about your local, like how are you in representation of your local stock markets and of your local like cost of your oil and things like that.
Right.
It's like not the world people live in of the, and this is what my paycheck is. It's the world of, and this is what my evaluation is.
Exactly. It's that sort of thing, but it's more of like the individual person in the economy that props up the economy being able to like talk about their evaluations and stuff like that. And then you have on the other side a whole pressure of people wanting to be able to take wealth and turn it into assets. Assets that they can keep and hoard so that they have that economic growth. And what that tends to do, from my understanding, is it takes money actually out of the economy that the average person uses.
Yes.
So you end up with a shadow economy that the average person is dealing with.
Yeah.
But a wealthy economy on top of that. And we saw that during like the railroad and industrial revolution in America and in Great Britain, where you had these like extremely poor people that were living on the streets, some wealthy people that had become poor, or like almost wealthy people. The middle class shrunk. We saw fewer and fewer workers going out and doing things because the industrialization was taking away their like very manual labor jobs. And the people that were able to have jobs were becoming single family incomes, or like things like that. I mean, it really like kind of it's almost like we're repeating that again.
Yeah, I was going to say we are in a lot of ways sitting in a very grape of wrathy sort of situation where so much of the economy is just people struggling versus the just very almost like flippant waste of resources in other places.
Yes.
When
absolutely.
we get people talking about one of the main restrictions on AI right now is how much water people drink, because it can't go to the data centers because it has to go to people. It's like that's a negative.
Yeah.
And things like that. It is hitting in those areas, and I think that's a very 100% agree. It's a very telling thing of our economy, and we have seen this several times. We got the Great Depression, all the hyperinflation that kind of happened there for a little bit with who was that? Right after Reagan? I forget who it was. I'm not that well versed, but .com era, the housing market crash in 2008 had some. They weren't as big. We had those problems in like 2016, 2017. We're doing the same thing right here, and we're kicking the can down the road. And I think one of the reasons everything's so hyped up about AI right now is it's kind of being seen. It's almost being used as like an economic savior for that system.
Right.
Of the like, hey, we were really struggling over COVID. We really boomed, and we're really restricting. But look, AI's here now. And that's going to be the next industrial revolution, and that's what's going to save us from, having to actually come back here and fix the economy, because now I've generated a ton more wealth.
When we say we were struggling, we're talking about people that are very wealthy were struggling because in order to pay people, they were having to expend resources, sell off assets, things like that.
No. Well, yeah, when I was saying struggling, I truly mean like evaluations. Like the stock market was finally looking like it might start taking a hit. In the housing market, looked like it might finally start getting cheaper. Things like that. It's like a lot of these of kind of what we call bubbles.
The housing market didn't actually look like it was going to get cheaper, but it was going like actually to people that were moving into places.
Yes,
not,
exactly.
Not the other way around. So your middle class was growing. Your
people were finally starting to get into houses.
Money. Yeah.
Instead of them being bought by investment companies and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And, that was looking like that was going to change. That was shifting in the other direction. And it was just so telling of how separate these two systems were. I think when, especially like the stimulus checks came out, because like not everybody spent their stimulus check well, but that those checks really did change things for a lot of people that weren't impacted by job loss at the time. Yep. A lot of people who were just like, hey, I got like an extra $6,000 or $7,000. That's the last little bit I needed to get into a home, or man, that was enough to give me some more education and change this thing, or that was enough to finally repair this problem with my house or this problem with my car that was keeping me from doing something. just an extra, $5,000-$10,000 in that could just be spent on something at that moment, as if it had been in savings the whole time, change stuff for a lot of people. And that's just how rather thin our economy is right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what's going to be our problem over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that's also really where I talk a lot about an AI bubble.
Yeah.
Is I don't think AI itself, in the sense of like, hey, AI is. I mean, I do think AI companies are overvalued, but I think they're overvalued as a product of them needing to prop up the economy.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that like AI has. What's the right way to say it? I'm struggling. I guess what I'm getting at is it's not a problem of like AI itself is a super terrible product and everyone who uses it is foolish and like, of course this is going to collapse. Like this isn't a crypto coin that someone put up, or it's not, when everyone looked at an NFT and all they could think about was monkey pictures.
Yeah.
It's not something like that. Like AI as a product is useful in several contexts. But I think the problem is it's hitting that area of we've really overevaluated everything because this is how we keep our positions in the green.
Yeah.
Of like, man, we could get in. We all decided, hey, and when I say we're talking about larger economic players. Let's really get into NVIDIA. Let's really like, Intel like really blew up.
Yeah.
All these other manufacturers like, yeah, let's get into
AMD.
OpenAI.
I had some AMD stock that I bought when it was like much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Now my AMD stock has like tripled in
Exactly.
price. Or no, it's more than that. Like because I didn't have a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I just bought like enough. It made my stock portfolio that I just kind of manage on my own go from like a certain amount to like double that amount just overnight.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably not super sustainable. And it's not AMD's fault or anything like that, but it's being selected of hey, you're part of this cloud of things that we're really banking on being the next thing, because then we don't have to rebalance.
Exactly.
We don't have to sit there and take a loss on something. We don't have to sit down and say, okay, we made bad financial decisions. We can just kick that can another couple days. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from. I think that's why the quote unquote AI bubble, if it pops, I think it will, but you never know. We've been kicking the can. We never resolved the stuff from 2008. All those things are still wrapped up in derivatives and still being knocked around.
I'm not 100% sure that AI, like what we're looking at, is necessarily a bubble. I think that there's certain markets that are within it that have become bubbles. Like
exactly. But AI bubbles is just the term people are familiar with. But whatever this economic bubble is, whatever we want to call it, whenever it does finally pop, is going to be hell. Because we've kicked that can for so damn long. And one of the things I look at is eventually, how many people are going to become unemployed before you just have to say, hey, there's a problem. Like, I think, I know some professionals, and whether or not, with you can debate how high up in percentile they are in terms of their, like, how much of an expert they are in certain things. But we all know tech workers who have lost their jobs, have been out of jobs for quite some time, to the point that, one of the ones we're close with has completely liquidated their 401k.
Yeah.
They have no money left.
Have nothing left to live off of because they've just done what they had to do. Yeah.
Had their career for 20 years and have been pretty much unemployed for a year and a half. And that was enough to just destroy everything.
Right.
And now they're pretty much going to be like living in their car if they don't figure something out. And that's for a skilled, trained professional,
right,
who was making, a six-figure salary, and that's scary. That like the people who have quote unquote made it and would have been considered living the easy life 5 years ago are now essentially, at the very bottom of the rung.
Right. They're going to have to move in with friends or family, sort of deal. That's not, and if they don't have friends or family, they're screwed.
That's the thing that I think is really going to creep up on people, is like, as more and more debt is getting taken out, eventually you can't sustain it anymore. And once, 10% of the workers that have been laid off are suddenly completely unemployed, and we filled up all the service jobs, there aren't smaller jobs for them to fall back on, and now they're looking at, well, I either have to move out of my house or live in my car type of thing. How many people are just going to say, look, no, I'm not. I am just going to walk into this grocery store. I'm going to take these groceries.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not going to move out of my house. You're going to have to get the law enforcement here. And it's in such a large number, maybe the law enforcement can't do it.
Yeah.
It really spirals real quickly when we start talking about job numbers at the rate we are.
Yeah.
It's not Great Depression bad yet, but it's a lot of bad just to justify. We got to make sure that the investors don't lose any money this year.
Yeah. I was going to talk about running local LLMs and stuff like that today, but I think this is going to be our topic.
Yeah.
The jobpocalypse is our topic.
You got me ranting again.
I think the local LLMs are going to the next half of the season, which is going to be somewhere around the end of August. So we've got about a month and a half, 2 months that we're looking at here for that. And so, here I am babbling as you drink and check out the warmed up Passionfruit, Guava, Orange, Sour Ale, the Supernova.
I like it less, but I think you'll like it more. I think with the acidity dropping, it brings out the bitterness more, but it does bring out the orange more. I still think the flavor balance is bad, but I do think it's more nuanced, which you might enjoy.
Okay. So this is my take on this beer. I think if you are in the mood for a very complex drink and you don't want to go after a Cabernet or a mead that has been made with like a Metheglin where you've got spices in it or something like that, and you're or a whiskey, something that's like got very complex flavors, or even tea. And what you really want is something that is like a beer. It's a lower alcohol, lighter kind of thing. This would be a good exploratory beer. If you really like sour, bitter things, this would also be a good exploratory beer. Drink it cold if you like sour, bitter things. If you want to explore it, drink it 45 to 50 degrees, somewhere in there, and you'll enjoy it. I don't love this one. I'm never going to buy it again. If I want to experience those things, I'm going to reach for a glass of whiskey.
Yeah.
Like that. That's what I'm going to do. If I want a sour ale where I'm experiencing these flavors, I'm going to either make my own mead that has a lot of. So I made a couple of years ago. Many years ago, when I first moved into this house, I made this mead that was a sour citrus. It was like a lemon, lime, orange mead, but it was very bitter also because I put a lot of the pith in it, and I intentionally did that to balance the sweetness with some bitterness instead of putting like hops or something in it. And I liked it a whole lot, and my brother-in-law likes it a whole lot. I'm going to have to make some more of it because he keeps bugging me about it, which I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
That means it's a good product, right? This could kind of be in that same vein, but it misses the honey characteristic. The beer itself is a good beer. The flavoring they added to it doesn't go well with the base beer because the base beer is such a crisp, bright beer.
Yeah.
I think if they had done something that was a little hoppier, like an IPA, it actually would be better because it would balance that bitterness, but also add some juiciness and things like that to it. I still don't know that. Or a fruit beer, maybe. I don't know. I just don't think this is a good flavor combination. So it's not for me. This is not for me. I do like it better warmer because it's more complex. That's the thing I like about the beer. I just don't like the combination of the Weiss beer with the
Yeah.
with the grapefruit. Now that's weird though because I like a good rattler.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I had like some Seven Up or Shandy, if I have some like
Mm-hmm.
lemonade or something and a good beer, but I
Yeah.
generally like those with lagers,
Mm-hmm.
which are sweeter.
Yeah.
So that might also be if this was a lager,
Yeah. I would.
that might work.
Yeah. Or you made a good point. You could make a little rattler with this. I think if you put some Sprite in that or something, that may improve it some because it will give it a little bit more of the sweetness while sticking with that kind of citrusy flavor profile.
Yeah, I was tempted just now to go
Mm.
downstairs and get some lemonade and put in it, but I'm not going to do that. It's not
Yeah.
worth it. It's not. It's just not worth having this beer around, really.
Mm-hmm.
If you like those things that I described, you should get it. If you don't, it's cool.
Yep.
Anyways, this has been season 9, episode 12 of the Beer and Broadband podcast, slated to come out on July 6th, 2026. It's our last session for this half of the season. We'll be
Mm-hmm.
coming back around the end of August, and we hope to catch you then. Thanks for listening.